What's your personal opinion on what digital system to use for cinematic or retail filming, DJI or Walksnail? Sebas, I would argue that you could do cinematic filming with either, but I would tell you, as an observation, the vast majority of professionals fly DJI. Like, it's near ubiquitous, I would say. And who knows what the reason for that is. Is it because DJI is like more reliable? Is it just because DJI is a known quantity and people don't want to take chances on something else? I couldn't say. But I can tell you that like everyone I know who flies professionally is flying DJI air units. Like, ask yourself if you've ever seen a professional on a movie set. Like, obviously, you're probably not on a movie set, but if you look at, like, the behind-the-scenes footage that people post on Instagram and so forth, what goggles are they all wearing? And it's usually DJI goggles. I can think of some rare cases where they'll use analog, like the Dutch drone gods when they did their thing that required a repeater. Well, that's obviously going to be analog because you can't really repeat DJI. But, yeah. It's all DJI, pretty much.
But you could repeat DJI if they build a repeater for it.
Well, you could if they built a repeater for it, but they're not going to do that. But yeah, you know that. Yeah, go ahead.
You're good. You got the segue.
Yeah, no, I did. I see what you're trying to tease me into segueing to. Yeah, the reason you can't easily repeat DJI is that you can't build a standalone. Like, how would you repeat DJI? Well, normally what you do is you have a receiver that feeds into a transmitter. And for analog, that's super easy. You have an analog receiver module like a TBS Fusion or Immersion RC Rapid Fire, and it outputs a video signal, and you feed that video signal into a VTX, boom, you built a repeater. It's not hard. It's like trivially simple. But how would you do that with DJI? Well, you'd need a standalone receiver. Oh, oops, that doesn't exist. Well, I could use Cosmos Streamer. Okay. Cosmos Streamer is going to take the signal from the goggles and output it as HDMI to what? There's no DJI video transmitter. The only DJI video transmitter is the air unit, and that doesn't take an HDMI signal in. So you basically can't build a DJI repeater. But Walksnail's doing us a solid, because Walksnail, thanks to Madstech for leaking, or for someone leaked them, these images. We've got some images here of Walksnail's latest project, which appears to be a repeater. Walksnail Avatar repeater. So we got a set of antennas here, receiving the signal, and a set of antennas retransmitting the signal. Now this is really interesting. Number one, just because they've done it. This is, I believe, the first digital FPV system to sell an off-the-shelf repeater. In fact, I can't think of an analog off-the-shelf repeater, although it probably has existed at some point in time just because it's so trivial to make. Everybody I can think of who's made repeaters has made it themselves, analog repeaters. So, very interesting. The big question that comes to my mind is, what's this going to do to the latency? Because unlike an analog signal, where the decoding time is basically zero, and so when you take that signal from an analog receiver and you feed it into a VTX, you're adding completely negligible amounts of latency. I would guess that it's not even a millisecond of latency being added. The signal's just coming in and going out. There's no frame buffering or anything with analog. Well, with digital, there's buffering. So this has got to add at least one frame of latency, which Walksnail can hardly afford extra latency. Although, if you're doing a repeater, you're probably not doing proximity flying where latency is a big issue. You're probably doing long-range stuff. And in long-range stuff, there you can be much more latency tolerant because you're up in the sky, or maybe you're even flying autonomously. So this is a very interesting development. Here's a shot of the circuit board with all the electronics and stuff. Who knows when this will come to market, if it ever comes to market. But kudos to Walksnail. Is there a legal use for this? I can't imagine needing one without being beyond visual line of sight. No, Aber, there is no legal use for this. Unless you were to get some kind of a waiver, and it's always possible to get a waiver from the FAA, so arguable. I think we could safely assume that this is not intended for sale to hobbyists, if you want to read between the lines there.